Welcome back to the RedefineFX YouTube channel, everybody. So today I'll show you how to turn liquid into a solid by basically raising the viscosity from 0 all the way to 1 and changing the color in the process using Phoenix in 3ds Max. So the beginning of this is the same as what we've done on this channel many times before. So I'm working in centimeters. I have a standard cylinder emitter here. I set the polygon ID to 10 down here, so the liquid is only coming out of this bottom polygon. And then I have my liquid source set to an outgoing velocity of 50 centimeters for 150 frames. So just don't forget to set the polygon ID here to that ID number. So the way this works, we're gonna start with the liquid being very liquidy, and then we're gonna raise the viscosity later. So under grid, you can just do 0.5 centimeter cell size for now, so it's fast to simulate, and we're gonna increase the resolution later. You can set it to jam both on the z-axis so that the floor acts as the floor and the liquid cannot pass through it. I've enabled the adaptive grid, as you can see. If I turn on the maximum expansion, so this is how far the grid is allowed to expand. If the liquid sort of splashes out of this region, it will expand up until this red border. So this just helps to speed up the simulation because I'm not simulating all of this empty space. So under dynamics, I'm doing 4 steps per frame because the liquid is moving pretty fast. The default viscosity, if you do 0, that's water, and water is a bit too liquidy. I wanted the liquid to be a little bit thick right from the start. So I set this default viscosity to 0.2. The surface tension strength is set to 0.5. So this is beautifully seen here in this trend. If you pay attention, like the way these drops combine together, how the liquid is attracted to each other and it just sort of forms bigger drops, and then it forms these holes. That's controlled by the surface tension. So I wanted this effect because it looks like the liquid is sort of losing moisture and it's compressing and getting smaller as it's drying. Now I need the liquid to be sticky and get stuck to the object. So you need to enable wetting first in order for stickiness to be available. And then you can set sticky liquid all the way to 1. So that's how you get it to get stuck to geometry. So under output, as always, just pick a folder where you want to save the cache. Make sure that you output the grid velocity because I am going to render this with motion blur. So you need grid velocity for that. And you also need grid viscosity. So because the viscosity changes over time from 0.2 to 1, we need to output the grid viscosity. So this would be just our base simulation. Let me run this so you see what that looks like. All right, so everything is running as it should. The viscosity of the liquid is always 0.2. So it just keeps pouring out. Now to make it solidify over time, we're gonna use the particle tuner. So I'll just go under create, helpers, Phoenix FD, and create particle tuner helper here. So if you're familiar with tyflow condition operators, this works in a very similar way. We basically, when you think about it, want to add a time test, and we want to say that if the liquid is older than a certain amount of frames, then we want the viscosity to increase to 1. So I'm gonna click here and just say edit condition. And here it says H, so it's perfect. So if the H of the liquid is greater than, and then I wanna give it a random value. So I'll click on this and I'll say random between 0.5 and 1.5. So this is in seconds. So my timeline right now is set to 24 frames per second, which means that 0.5 is 12 frames, 1.5 is 36 frames. So right now the condition says that if the H of the liquid is greater than anywhere between 12 frames and 36 frames, then something happens. And what I want to happen is I want to change the viscosity. So just select the viscosity here. And I want to set it to a value of 1. And I'll give it a build-up time of 0.5 seconds. So it's not gonna happen immediately. Basically, the viscosity is gonna increase from 0.2 to 1 across 12 frames or 0.5 seconds in our case. So this is all you need to do here. So I'll go back under the grid, and if you wanna sort of check if it's working or not, you can go under preview, turn off show mesh, and just select viscosity here, and I'll run the simulation again and let's check if it's working. All right, so I'm running the simulation and it's working beautifully. The darker it is, the lower the viscosity, the more bright orange it is, the higher the viscosity. So the brightest orange here is viscosity 1, the darkest is viscosity 0.2, and then you get some of the values in between because we set the build-up time to 12 frames or 0.5 seconds. So you get a nice transition between liquidy and solid. And it's just beautifully happening just like this. So now we just need to do the material setup. Say show mesh and turn off the viscosity display. Open the material editor. And basically we're gonna need two materials. One is gonna be the green wet material and the other one will be the dry orange material. So I'll just make a material here, name it wet. The naming here will help you. So name it accordingly and just make a new Vray material. Let's make it a nice sort of bright green, give it a high reflection to make it look wet. Maybe set the glossiness to 0.97. And then I'll make another material, name this dry. And again, do Vray material, set the color to orange, set the reflection again pretty high, but this time I'm gonna reduce the glossiness much lower. So maybe just 0.55. just to make it look dry. And now we basically need to apply both materials to this. So I'll need to create a Vray blend material. So again, standard Vray blend material, say discard old material. So the base material will be our wet because we want it to start as this green wet material. So I'll just drag this here and say instance. The coat material here will be our dry material. So again, just drag the dry and say instance. We have a mixture of orange and green. If you click on this little square, this controls how much they mix. So if I make it black, you get just the green. If I make it pure white, you get just the dry orange. We actually want it to start off being green. So I'll set this to black so it starts off as being wet. And then we need to control the transition of the material based on the viscosity so that only the viscous liquid will get the orange dry. So I'll click on this no map and then I want to go under Phoenix FD and select the Phoenix FD grid texture. For the source, we need to pick the simulator. So I'll just pick my Phoenix FD liquid simulator here, set the channel to viscosity because that's what we want to color it with, and everything else you can leave at default. So let's test whether this is working. First, we need to just apply this material straight to our Phoenix grid, and it will just appear as green in your viewport. But if you enable the Vray IPR, you can see that it's beautifully working now, and it's transitioning from that green material into our orange. So again, if you didn't catch that, in the viewport, it will just show up as a solid color. But if you render it out or enable the Vray IPR to see, the materials are actually working as they should. So it is working beautifully. So at this point, the only remaining step, as always, is just to run the simulation again with higher details. Set the cell size to maybe just 0.4 centimeters. It's what I did. You can go even lower to get nicer detail. I would give it more steps per frame, so maybe 6 or even 8 steps per frame, and just run it again. And then when you render it out, you get something that looks like this. Pretty simple to set up once you understand how the particle tuner works. And you can do all sorts of very cool effects with this. You have more conditions here to play with. You have age, you can change the RGB, you can change the velocity, speed, all that, distance to object. It's very similar to how tyflow works here. So play around. As always, if you guys learned something, if you find these tutorials helpful, I would very much appreciate a thumbs up. Please don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell. It helps me grow the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.